Good morning. This is a virtual PBX admin training. I'm going to give people a couple minutes just to jump on since I'm a little bit early today. Generally speaking, this goes for about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. Just depends on load time sometimes, as well as if I'm mumbling or stumbling around on my explanations. So I'm trying to cut that down. We are here essentially every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, so you can always come back at a later time if you don't have the time to sit through this right now. We do record these training sessions and we keep them here on our YouTube channel. So again, if it's Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific don't work for you, you can come back and see the recordings and go through the complete trainings at your convenience. There are other videos on our YouTube channel, including we just released a ACDQ's Pro demo, and also we have the advanced reporting demo. There's many more. Those are just the ones I've been recently looking at, but I do recommend giving those a look, as they'll give you some insights on those features that I'm not able to get into on this training. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started here. So on the page, you see our login screen here, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also get there from the virtualpbx.com website. Just mouse over support and click on the login link. I do recommend bookmarking this page. That way you can just get here easily going forward. To log in, we need your username, which is your email address, password, which should have been emailed to you, and then the account name, typically your company name. Can be your own name if you set up your own personal PBX system. Now, if for some reason you don't remember your password or the password was never emailed to you, over here, just above the sign in button, towards the bottom right, we have a forgot your info link. So if you click on that, we still need your email address, right? That's what either what you signed up with, if you're the person who owns the account, or what your admin used to create your user. And then we need either the account name, right, so company name, or a phone number on the account. And that's one of the phone numbers that your customers call to get to your phone system right now. And so these bottom two, one or the other, we don't need both. Right, so two pieces of information total. You click on reset your password, you'll get an email that has a link, lets you get logged in to change your password. And after you do that, it logs you out. So that way you're back here at the login page. And you have the option to click on Remember Me, which I do recommend for most people. And then you click on Sign In. Now, one thing to remember about Dash, we do recommend that you make use of either Chrome or Firefox for most of your navigation within Dash. Other browsers can have issues or may not load properly. Now, on my account here, this is a test account that's been around for 6 years now, I think, or pushing 6 years anyway. So that's why I'm here on the dashboard. For you, if it's your first time logging in, you actually get taken to your account page. Now you can always get back to your account page by clicking on your name up here at the top. And you see here, this is where you would change your own email address for login and your own password. Right? You can also change your time zone, etc. Your first time logging in, the Dash wizard will come up, right? Little pop-up boxes giving you an overview of what you're seeing here. Now, as an admin, over here on the left, you also have the account level settings. And the most common thing changed is the time zone, right? To put it to your appropriate time zone. If you do change your account name, you do want to let our billing team know, and our accounts or our account services team, just to make sure we get everything updated properly. Now, as I mentioned, this is a test account. So on your accounts, you have additional information under where it says user, and that's for your billing information. This is where you would update your credit card information. You can see previous invoices. You can see your current plan. You can also update the billing contact information, right? Essentially the account owner and who by default is getting the invoices. When you're done within the account area, right, click over here on the right, the close button, and then you're back here on the dashboard. Now, to the right of your name, you might have a DND toggle for Do Not Disturb. If it's white, that means it's enabled, so calls aren't going to get to you. Right? If it's basically black with like a white outline, that means it's not enabled. The reason I don't have it on my user here, or at least on my top navigation bar there, is because I'm an agent within an ACD queue, and we have found that sometimes agents would toggle their Do Not Disturb on while being logged into a queue, which would cause problems with them getting calls from that queue. So it was removed for those people. Next, we got the little question mark icon, and you see here it gives us some additional options. Chat with us will open up a chat window, so you can speak to a support representative, and they can walk you through setting up a particular feature. Learn more will take you to a support page, the main support page, so then you can look at particular guides that have screenshots as well as written instructions. You've got the online store that takes you to store.virtualpbx.com. And that's where you can buy things like a VoIP phone or a router, even headsets. There's a blank spot here, and that can be populated by the web phone. The web phone is a kind of soft phone, and I'll get into a little bit more detail about that later. Here we've got the 3 horizontal line icon, the menu icon or hamburger icon. That's how we refer to it as. This takes you to other features of Dash. Some, like ACD queues, which I've already mentioned, is an add-on feature available on some plans. Others are more core, like blacklists, and every plan has those. Anything that either requires a plan change and or an additional fee, I'll try to make sure to highlight that so yeah, you know what you could be getting into. And then here we've got the logout icon. Right, down here on the left, these are other more core features of Dash. There's a couple that are special, which I will again highlight. In the middle here, we got total users. I have 20. Right, so these are people on my account who make and receive calls. If I'm on a per user plan, that means I'm paying for each one of these people. Right, so if I added a 21st person, my bill's going to go up. Right, total devices, you see I have 42. Now, then there's a breakdown. So first up, we've got a cell phone, and I've got 14 of them on the account. And then that's that little green on the pie chart. Then we've got web phone. So the web phone is a kind of soft phone. So let's back up a little bit here. Okay, so VoIP, right, stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. Basically, it's use your internet connection to make and receive calls. One of the first things that was done for that was creating software for your computers, typically, at least initially, to then use your internet connection to make and receive calls. That's what's referred to as a soft phone, right? Software application phone, soft phone. The web phone is a version of a soft phone, right? Because it's using a web browser, in this case, Chrome or Firefox, and it allows you to make and receive calls using those browsers, again, with your internet connection. Now, the web phone, it's only going to work on those browsers on the computer versions of those browsers, right? Not mobile. So if you bring up Chrome on your iPhone and try to use a web phone, it's most likely not going to work. It's not currently supported. All right, next we have soft phones. So again, this is a general software application that acts like the phone. Now, this can refer to the VirtualPBX soft phone application. This could also refer to third-party soft phone applications, right? So you can go, there's a company called Counterpath. They have several different soft phone applications. You could be using one of theirs, and that would show up here as part of that soft phone group. And there are many people who make soft phone applications out there. All right, next up, we have SIP phone. Now, SIP is a kind of physical VoIP phone, right? So VoIP phone, right? Voice over Internet Protocol. SIP is a subtype of VoIP phone. It's a particular protocol. So not every VoIP phone on the market is a SIP phone, but every SIP phone is a VoIP phone. This could be like a Yealing phone, a Polycom phone, Cisco phone, etc. There's several manufacturers that we support. And you see I have 4 of them on the account. And then I have a landline, which most people at least have heard of. Down here, you have unregistered devices. The system is telling me I have 17 unregistered devices. This typically refers to my VoIP devices and is basically telling me, hey, 17 of your phones are not working. Right? Meaning the Dash system cannot send a call to them because they're not registered, and they're not going to be able to make outbound calls. Now, this can be something really simple, right? Someone hasn't logged into their cell phone app. It would show up as unregistered, right? Or someone just, moved to a new location and they haven't plugged in their physical VoIP phone yet, right? Once they get it booted up, it will show up as registered. Now, yes, it can be more complicated, right? It could be something, oh, that person who moved, they have a new ISP and they have a whole new set of network equipment. There could be something within that network equipment that's preventing the phone from registering even though it's plugged in, and even though their internet connection works fine. Right, so that means we'd have to get into router settings, essentially. Right, it could also be something more major, like the ISP for that particular user is down, or they have a local outage. Right, now we have total phone numbers on the account. Your account includes anywhere from 2 to 15 phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. Depending on your plan, you can always add more numbers than your monthly allotment. It's just that once you get overage or over that allotment, you're going to have pay per phone number per month. That charge will vary depending on your plan. Right? It can be anywhere. I think the lowest I've seen is $1.99, and the highest is $9.99, although that's for much older plans, I believe. For that, to confirm that, you want to talk to our account services team. They can confirm what plan you're on and what version, and then also what overages you may be having for extra phone numbers. I have a total of 30, so that means I have many phone numbers and I'm getting overages. Then we got a breakdown here. So I have assigned numbers and spare numbers first. An assigned number means I'm using it, right? Someone can dial the number and get to someone and leave a voicemail. Or they can get to my conference room, or they can send me a fax, or have a number, going directly to a salesperson, that sort of thing, right? So someone can dial the number and somehow connect with my account. Spare number would be the opposite of that. It's a number on my account, but it doesn't go anywhere, right? Someone can dial it, they're going to get busy tone. Now, it still counts as part of my allotment of numbers because it's a number on my account. But it could be, I had a special promotion that just ended, and I just moved it to spare numbers, so that way I don't get calls about a promotion that's no longer valid, right? Or let's say I was able to get a number, 10 numbers that were in sequence. I just haven't gotten to the last ones of those yet. I don't want to give up those numbers because I like to have, that nice sequential set of numbers. So I put them in spare until I'm ready to use those. All right, next breakdown here we have is USDID versus US toll-free. US toll-free is actually US Canada toll-free, right? This is an 800 number, 833 and down through 833. USDID just means a US local phone number, right? So you can have a number in, say, San Diego, California. You can also have numbers in Dallas, Texas, outside of, or you can go up to, Boston, Massachusetts, and anywhere in between for the most part. If you're interested in having an international phone number on your account that is supported, you're going to want to email our porting team, which is porting@virtualpbx.com. They'll need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in, and then they'll let you know if there's additional requirements. Right? It's going to vary by country. That's handled by their governments or their version of the FCC. Basically saying, hey, we need this information before we can even get a number. Right? Some don't care. It's gonna, it just depends on their organizational needs. Down here at the bottom, I've got conference bridges. This just means I've enabled the conference feature on 8 of my users, meaning 8 people can host a conference or they moderate a conference, however you want to term it. Over here at the top, we got my main numbers. So these 3 phone numbers, they all behave the same way. right? They're all going to go to the same location. They're all going to have the same main greeting. Then I've got my main conference number. You can have multiple conference numbers if you want, but this phone number is the number that everyone dials to get to the conference rooms, right? So whether they're my staff members, my vendors, my customers, they all would dial this number. The fax box number, you can have one fax box number. When you do so, you enable faxing on the account, and this is your inbound fax number. The company directory, this is a download link that downloads a text file and will have your users and their extension numbers. The cell phone directory, this is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop cell phone application, so for Windows and Mac. You would download this file and upload it to your cell phone, and then you'll be able to see the status of your other staff members in relation to their cell phone, right? So green means they're available, right? So I can call my coworker Mike if his phone's green, little icon is green. We can talk about a document that we need to create for a new feature, right? Versus at the same time, my boss can see that I'm red, so he can't call me, or he shouldn't call me, because he's like, oh, he's busy right now. I'll talk to him later. All right, then we got the store discount code. Just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount in the online store, store.virtualpbx.com. I think it's like 10%. I might be wrong about that. And then lastly, we have the account realm. The account realm is used in a couple things. One, it's one of the identifiers for your account, so we can look you up by the account realm. But mostly it's used for outbound faxing. So for outbound faxing on your Dash account, it's actually email to fax. So you create an email using that same email address you use for your username. In the to field, you put the plus sign, the number 1, then the area code and phone number you're faxing to, little @ symbol, and then your account realm. You simply attach a PDF or a TIFF file to that email and you click send. Right? There's no point in typing in the body of the email. The system doesn't even look at it. It looks at the to field. It looks at the attachment. And that's it. The other thing that the realm is used for is to program or set up a third-party device, whether that's a cell phone application, say from Counterpath, or a VoIP phone that didn't show up on the VoIP list, which we'll be getting to later. All right, up here at the top, we have caller ID. Now this is your main company caller ID. Now this pull down should show you all your main phone numbers. So I should have 3 showing here. Unfortunately, it's not working on this application. And then we've got the company caller ID name, right? Referred to as CNAME or CNOM. This allows you to enter in up to 15 characters, and that includes spaces and special characters, to show up as part of your caller ID information. So when you click Save, changes at the bottom here, right? When a VoIP phone user picks up their VoIP phone, makes an outbound call, by default, they're going to show this main company caller ID phone number, right? That's their outbound caller ID. And we also transmit the CNAME information. Now, when you click Save Changes, the CNAME information, that information gets sent out to the other carriers who support CNAME. It takes them about 3 business days to update. Some of them are faster than others. So when you make that outbound call, you go through various carriers to get to your destination. Not every carrier supports CNAME. So if your call happens to route through one of them, your CNAME information will not show up at the destination. The destination device, whatever carrier they're on, they have final say of what shows up on their phone's displays. And that's not something we can overwrite, right? We can send the information, but if they decide they want something else to show up at their end, they can do so. And that's normally the cell phone carriers who would do something like that, right? They're the ones who put that spam risk or telemarketer. And so their customers can say, hey, this is wrong, and say, no, that's not actual spam. And then there's a new North American, or at least U.S. Regulation called Stir Shaken that's rolling out, and that should help alleviate a lot of that. Right, next, we have the company emergency or E911 information. Just makes an address associated with a particular phone number So that way, if your VoIP phone users pick up their VoIP phone and dial 911, this will be the default address that gets sent to emergency services. So one, you want to make sure this is a valid address. Now, every phone number on your account can have a different address. So therefore, you can set up your users of VoIP devices to use different E911 information depending on where they are. Right? So that way they can have accurate E911 information. All right, any changes here, you go ahead and click on Save Changes at the bottom. Then we got hold music. Now, hold music on Dash is defined as after a call has reached a user, and then that user presses hold on their VoIP phone. And then that's when a music file will play. You can upload your own file. Just click Upload here. Find the file on your computer, and then you would click the Upload arrow icon here. Now, Dash will play back .wav, .mp3, and .ogg files. You want to make sure they're recorded in mono and that they're under 1 megabyte in size. A 1 megabyte MP3, for example, is roughly 5 minutes. So also recording in mono gives you more space. And then you would click on Save Changes. Now this hours here, this actually is part of main number. So instead of skipping around in main number, I'm just going to go to main number in general. The main number page does take a little while to load just because there's a lot of info. So just keep that in mind. So once it's loaded up the top, you got your main company numbers. If you click on that, it will expand the list. You see your main company numbers here. Now, if for some reason you don't want a number to be a main number any longer, you can click Unassign. Right, and that will move it to become a spare number. So it's still on your account. Once a number is spare, though, you can delete it when we'll get to that, when we get to the numbers. Now, any place you can assign a number, you usually have the option here for add from spare numbers, right? So you can add any number that you're currently not using. Or you can also buy numbers, right? So buying new numbers. Toll-free, pretty easy, is you select the toll-free prefix you want to use, you click on search, and you see a number that you would like. You can click add, right? Shows it up here in the cart, shows the number. You can always remove it if you see another one that you like instead. You can add multiple numbers at the same time if you want to, in terms of from the same, in this case, 877 numbers. And then you would click on Buy Numbers. So then the system is verifying that number was truly available, then moves it to your account and activates it so it's ready for use. Now for toll-free numbers, for local numbers, it's a little different in that you need to know the area code, right? So you can do 415, which is San Francisco area, and I don't have any available. Now, some area codes, like 415, are the original area codes that were created back in the late 40s. And especially for phone number or area codes that are in big metro areas, they may be exhausted. Now, our porting team can try to do what's called a back order, but there's no guarantee on when or if we'll get a number because we're just waiting on someone to release a number that's already being used. So what you would want to do then is look for a nearby area code or an overlay. And so 650 is on the East Bay. And then you can add numbers, right? So for anything like New York City, right? Los Angeles, Toronto, actually Toronto you can't search for here, but Miami, a lot of the big metropolitan areas, especially, you want to double check your overlays for your nearby area codes to see if, so that way you have other options in case the original area code for that area is exhausted. All right. Now for phone numbers, I have this little gear icon over here. So this is where I can enable caller ID for that particular phone number. So I can make a CNAME for outbound calls here, and I can also turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAME information. Right? So it shows up on my users' phones. Then I have the E911, right? So I can set up the specific address for this phone number. So it's an option to assign to my devices. Prepend is a VoIP feature. It allows you to create text in front of the caller ID information that shows up on your phones, or your VoIP phones specifically, right? So, right. So I can add SFBay, so that way when calls come in on the 650 number, on my staff members, say Polycom phones, on the display there, it'll say SF Bay and then the inbound caller ID phone number, right? So they know, oh, it came in on that particular phone number, so they're calling about our new promotion in the Bay Area, or the fact that we just expanded in the Bay Area. All right. Next up here, we have our office hours strategy. For a new account, you start off at 24-hour open office, meaning your system is ready to take calls. If that's not how you actually want to operate, you can then choose to be on custom office hours. For each day of the week that you're open, you put a little check mark in front of it. And then in the boxes here to the right, you select your open hours in 24-hour or military time. Right, obviously, if you're closed, you leave it unchecked. And at the very bottom, there's an option to say if your whole facility is closed for lunch, you can put a check mark there and then enter your lunch hours. So that way the system will automatically go into lunch mode for you. And then any changes here, you click on Save Changes at the bottom. Next up, we have office holidays. So first, if you're closed for holidays, put a check mark here. Then over here to the right, you have Add Holiday, and your options are single day, date range, and advanced. All right, single day, pretty straightforward. It's like here we have for New Year. You give it a name, you choose the month and the date. All right, date range, like here we have for Christmas. Choose a start date and an end date. Now notice on these that there's no year indicator. So you want to avoid a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Just do single days for each one of those. Or you can make them the end point or the start point for two separate date ranges. All right, for advanced, that's like this retreat option here, where I chose the first Friday in July, we're closed, right? Company picnic day. So first pull down here is just the months, right? The second pull down is 1st through 5th, as well as last, and then day of the week. One caveat is for things like President's Day, where the date of it may change in terms of when it's observed. You don't want to change it immediately, right? So if, say, the holiday is on a Monday, right, you don't want to come in and update it to the following, to be the next Tuesday, right? Usually it progresses a year, because then you'll be closed for 2 days in a row. Usually waits like a couple days later and then update. Any changes here, you click on Save Changes. All right, next up we have incoming call handling. This is basically how your main numbers are handling calls that come in. Notice here, I have open hours tab, I have a lunch hours tab, say I'm closed for lunch. Right? I have an after hours tab, and I have a holidays tab, because I said I'm going to be closed for lunch. Now, these options down below all were essentially the same, correct? But you can then adjust them for each time. So we'll start here with the first one here for calls come in during my open hours to my virtual receptionist. This is a link, so I can click it, it will open up. And you here see on my left is the main menu. Right, so these are what people press on their phone to navigate through my phone system. Click down here at the bottom where it says Add Route, and you have the default route 0 through 9 and star to choose from in terms of this first pull down, and then this other pull down. Actually, we'll go up here at the top here. So you have the Smart PBX directory, which is the dial by name directory. Then you've got any user that you've added to the account, right? So you're sending calls to a specific person. Call queues. If you're making use of ACD queues, they can show up here. So you're sending it to like a department or your call center, right? So like your tech support team, right? You can send calls to a specific device, meaning a specific phone. Not always recommended, because if that phone doesn't have voicemail, then the call can just either keep ringing forever or, or just be disconnected. You can send it to a media file. This means a greeting file plays, right? So again, and once that greeting file ends, the call ends. But you would use that for, like, say, hours of operation or directions. Then we have groups. Groups are like ACD queues, but they're a core feature, so there's no extra charge related to them. They're departments, though. Like, you can send it to a receptionist ring group, so it rings your staff members to answer that call. Advanced call flows, this would be if you're making use of sub-menuing. Basically, you're saying like 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. Those two options have their own menus, right? So their own 0 through 9 options and their own greetings. Or you can send calls to a voicemail box so that someone can leave a message. All right, over here to the right, we have greetings. Right, so this is where you say thank you for calling and give instructions on what to press and how to navigate through the system. The first option here is text to speech. You simply type in a greeting. You click update, you click save at the bottom, and then save changes back on incoming call handling. Now, the text to speech greeting, you have up to between 250 and 350 characters for use. And it varies a little bit just because of, if it's particularly complicated greeting, you end up having less characters to use. This is a computerized or robotic voice, right? I normally recommend the text-to-speech greeting for people who've never used a PBX system, or they're a startup company and they're still trying to figure out exactly how they want things to work, right? Because you can keep making these, there's no charge for them. One thing to keep in mind about the text-to-speech greeting is once you click update and save changes, it uses the same file name every time, right? So this is my main open hours. So the file name will be main open hours menu TTS, right? If I come in here tomorrow and make a new one, it's going to use that same file name. So every time you create a main menu or a text-to-speech greeting, you want to go to your greetings tab, which we'll be getting to shortly, and find that file and rename it to something you'll recognize. So that way, if you need to go back to it, you can find it. But that way, it's just in general easier for you to, find which greeting is which. Next up, we have upload your own file. All right, so you can upload a .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte file. You would find it on your computer, and then you would click update. You can choose from existing recordings. As you can see here, I have a main open hours menu TTS, which I did not rename. Normally, the pull down will populate everything on your greetings manager, but this will be, you can have a hold music file show up here, right? You can have voicemail greetings file show up here. So that's why you want to make sure you name things that are easily recognizable. you can record a greeting over the phone. Now, the system starts off here by saying, pick up a phone registered to the account. What that really means is pick up a VoIP phone on the account. Right, this is a security feature, basically saying, hey, it's a phone that we know, that the system knows is on the account, so it's okay for it to make a greeting. Right, and then it asks you for this PIN number. Now, this PIN number is specific to this time of day, so meaning it only works during my open hours, because that's the menu I'm looking in right now. Right, so if I try to use this PIN number during my after hours, it won't work. Now, if you don't want to use a VoIP phone to record the greeting, right? You've got that friend who's got that great radio voice. Then down here under settings, right here, allow outside recording. If you turn this on, now you're saying a cell phone or landline user can call in and record a main greeting, assuming they know the PIN number. Now, if you've just started, right, so you don't have a greeting in place, the system, when you call your main number, the system will say that, no greeting has been recorded for this menu. And then we'll ask you for the PIN number, right? You enter the PIN number, and then it prompts you through recording the greeting. If your account has already been established, right, you already have a greeting file in place, you call in and you enter the PIN number when you hear that initial greeting play, right? It will still let you walk you through recording a greeting over the phone. The file that's currently in place, right, in that scenario, right, we'll call it greeting A. The file name stays the same, but you're overwriting the content. So in an instance, let's say you have a greeting that you use for like 80% of the year, right? You probably don't want to call in and overwrite that, just because it's, coming up on a Labor Day weekend, right? Instead, what I would recommend is you come in here, choose from an existing recording, select one that you don't want to use, or that you just want to record over. Hit save and save changes, then call in, use the PIN number, and record the new reading. All right, professional recording services. When you click order here at the bottom, this will take you to another website, because we've partnered with another company called Snap Recordings. They have like 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from, various versions of English, Spanish, and French. So you can do multilingual greetings. They also do hold treatment, right? So music file and then the script being read. They handle their own billing. They typically deliver via email. Once you have the file, then you would just upload your own file. All right. Settings. So I've already kind of talked about one of them, but first we'll go at the top here. Number of retries on missed dial, and I have that set at 2. What this is how many times can your inbound caller make a mistake, right? So in this case, I'm saying they can make a mistake twice. So they call in and they press 5, right? Not a valid option. The system will say, well, by default, will play a message saying that's an invalid entry. It will replay the main greeting, right? Inbound caller presses 7. Again, still not a valid entry. Gets that message, plays the main greeting again, and now the customer, they get one last chance, right? Hopefully they hit 0 through 4 here. If they don't, let's say they press 9. In this current setup, they would then be sent to the default route, so they'd be sent to the directory. If I don't have a default route, so I can remove that, on that last attempt, right, the system will say invalid entry, and in that case, end the call. So that's useful for robodialers, or to prevent robodialers from getting through your system, right? Robodialers can't press a menu option, so eventually they'll hear the greeting play a few times, and then the call ends. So that way you don't get those annoying voicemails of music playing or some weirdo telling you a joke. All right. Dialing timeout. This is how much time the system waits after it hears a button press, right? So call comes in and that person presses 5. The system's going to wait till a count of 10 and go, oh, you're done, invalid entry. Right? For most systems, I recommend make that somewhere between 2 to 5, because if someone knows the extension number, they usually know it pretty quickly. But give them a little leeway in case they're looking at a scribble, like napkin or something. All right, we already covered the outside recording. Allow dialing extensions. So if this is on, that means when someone comes in, right, they hear the greeting, they can enter an extension number. Right? If I have this off, that means they can only press my menu options, even if they know the extension of the person they want to speak to. Right. And then we have this suppress playing of invalid entry, right? So when that person kept pressing 5 or 7, whatever, by default this is off, so that's why that invalid entry message will play. But if you don't want that to be played to your customers, then you just turn that on. That means that invalid entry message is not played, right? So they can hit something wrong, the greeting will just replay, and then they, oh, okay, and press whatever on their phone. Now, if you make any changes to the main menu, to your greetings, or the settings, you need to click Save here at the bottom right. And then when you're back on the incoming call handling page, you need to click Save Changes. You need to do both of those. You're clicking Save twice. All right. So this next option, right, call comes in, I'm offering it to Aaron. If he doesn't pick up, then it goes to my virtual receptionist. Now, right now I'm on my open hours, right? So that's going to be that same virtual receptionist we were just looking at. Oh, there we go. If, however, let's say I switch it to my lunch hours, right? You see here, I have it set this. In this case, I'm sending it to a ring group, my receptionist group. It's only going to ring whoever you select for 20 seconds. And then it's going to this virtual receptionist here under my lunch hours. And you notice it's different. Right, so I can set up a different virtual receptionist for each time of day. Usually that's because you have a different greeting. Now this pull down, right, you have users, you've got call queues, you've got devices, you have media file, which can be a little odd, right? Because that means your inbound caller is going to hear 2 greetings. The initial one when they, from this pull down, and then they'll hear one when they get to the virtual receptionist. That can be a little off-putting for your inbound caller. And then we'll scroll down here. We've got the groups, right? Any of your groups and advanced call flows. In all instances, it's only going to play or offer to whoever you select for 20 seconds. Right, then we got this one here. Call is being offered to receptionist, and if they don't pick up, it's going to Aaron's voicemail box. Right, so this first one is in our documentation. It's or the second one, I should say, is referred to as the live operator option. Right, this is not just because this has one additional option in that you can go send it skip to voicemail, and that is what I normally see on holidays for a small business like a mom and pop kind of shop. Right, call comes in, just say, hey, send it straight to voicemail. Hey, it's whatever holiday, we're closed. We'll contact you back on the next business day. This last option here is available because I have additional auto attendants or secondary auto attendants, so I can choose instead to have calls and send to one of those additional attendants. If you do not have multiple attendants on your account, then this option won't show up. All right, main conference number, you can add from spare, find new numbers, right? So you can have multiple conference numbers if you want to. You also have the option here for a custom text-to-speech greeting for your conference room, right? If you click enable, you just type in the script, again, 250 to 350 characters, and then you click save. Now, if I leave this disabled, the system still has a default greeting in place, right? It says welcome to the conference, and then prompts them to enter the conference room number and then the PIN number. All right, main fax box number, and you can only have the one number, but you can, if you don't have a fax box already set up, you can add from spare or buy new. Now on this account, the main fax box is broken. On your account, it won't be. And you can click edit fax box here and you'll have pop-up window will pop open, and you'll have two fields. The first field is for the inbound notification. You just simply put an email address, and whenever a fax comes through, that email address gets an email saying, hey, you have a new fax, here's the phone number it came from, here's an attachment, you can double click and open it up. Now, that email address will also get emails when someone dials your fax box number and then they hang up. Right? So from their cell phone, they're just dial a number, they hear fax tone, they go, ooh, wrong number, click. Right? That inbound notification still gets an email saying, hey, there was a failed inbound fax attempt. Now, that second field is for your outbound permissions, basically who's allowed to send a fax out. You can put an email address there, but you can also put your account or your company's domain, right? So if everyone at your company has, at abccleaners.com as part of their email address, you can add that domain into that field, and so then all your staff members can send a fax out through your Dash account without actually having to be a user on your Dash account. So like, you got intern Dylan coming in and you're having him fax people, but he doesn't have to be an actual user on your account. All right, next up is auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature, meaning it's available on some plans, but not others. So if this turns out to be something you're interested in, you're going to want to speak to our account services team so they can walk you through what plan options are available to you and what the pricing will be. There are two major use cases that we encounter for the auto attendance feature. One is for submenuing, which I previously mentioned under the virtual receptionist there, right? So one for English, two for Spanish. They have their own menus. The other is secondary attendance for standalone businesses, right? So let's say you have multiple small businesses that you're running. They each have their own phone number. They each have their own main greetings, but the calls go to the same staff members. That's the other case you would make use of this. Right? You would click up here and click on Add Attendant. You give it a name and an extension number. And the extension number is for your staff members. They can potentially transfer callers from one business to the other without making the inbound caller call back. Once you've created a attendant, you can click on the name, and you have your option here to be unavailable in main menu, meaning it's a standalone business or attendant, or choose to be available in a main menu. When you choose this, you click on Save Changes. So now this Spanish attendant is available to be in one of these other attendants or under my virtual receptionist. Now if we go up here to Jade, for example, right, I left that as unavailable in main menu, so it's a standalone attendant. And then I come here, each attendant can have their own phone numbers. So in that scenario where you have multiple businesses, right, you'd probably have individual phone numbers for each one of those businesses. You can always change the extension number or add multiple extension numbers for any of your attendants. And then if you click on the little wrench icon here, and this does take time to load, you can see here I have calls during my open hours going to the virtual receptionist. I don't have any of those other options we had under the incoming call handler. Right, you have lunch hours, you have after hours, you have holidays. Now these times, right, so your open hours, lunch hours, after hours, those match what we set up under the main number, right? So if, for instance, you had several businesses, but say one business is open 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and then you have two other businesses that are open 7 days a week. That's not going to work in this kind of scenario, right? Because you have two businesses with their two separate sets of hours of operation. They can't coexist on the same account, at least as designed. And that's kind of the situation. You're going to want to talk to account services because either they can look at having an advanced configuration done, basically custom work on your account, which typically has a one-time setup fee, or it might be easier just to have two separate accounts, right? So one for your 7-day-a-week businesses and one for your 5-day-a-week businesses. But again, all calls go to the virtual receptionist on the no matter what time it's at, and then you set up your routes, your greetings, and your settings. All right, next up we have devices. So a device that shows up green, that means it's connected, right, or registered, so we can send calls to and from it. Red means it's not registered or unregistered, so we can't send calls to and from it. And then black means you've turned it off. So we still can't send calls to it or from it. Up here at the top is where you would add a new device. First up, we've got the SIP phone, right? That's that physical VoIP phone. And you have these manufacturers to choose from. If you click on a manufacturer, you'll see some have many phones, others not so much. Basically, you want to find your manufacturer and your model of phone. Then you give it a name, right? So we call it Bob's phone. And then you need the MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each phone, usually a sticker on the back of the phone. But you can also, if the phone's powered up, under menu, like basic settings or status, there'll be something called MAC, M-A-C, and you just enter that information here. You would click on Create Device, and then you would assign that device to a user. Within the dashboard here, that's all you can do. But you do need to log into that phone's web user interface, right, the web UI, and you need to go to the auto provisioning section and enter in a URL. Those instructions vary slightly from each manufacturer, so you want to go to our support pages, right? So VirtualPBX.com, mouse over support, go to support pages, go down about a third of the way and look to the right. Under VoIP phones, you're looking for the document called Auto Provisioning Phones. That document has the screenshots of what you're looking for, where to go. It has the proper syntax for that URL for each device type, or each manufacturer type, I should say. And in some cases, additional settings that we want to make sure are set properly. Right? And then typically you click confirm or update or save, right, to save the changes you have to make, and then auto provision now. The phone will reach out to that URL, get its config file, typically reboot a couple times, and then after that, it should show up as a green device on your account, and then you can make and receive calls. Cell phone and landline are basically the same, it's just the label that's different. You give it a name, and then you put +1 area code and phone number, and click on Create Device. Now, some things to keep in mind, when we offer calls, or when Dash offers calls to a cell phone or landline, right, that phone will ring. And if you know, here, I clicked on the little wrench icon for this device, now I'm clicking on Advanced and going to Options. This is the default setup. So, calls being sent out to this cell phone, it rings, you pick up. Initially you will hear, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you are there, and yes, you want to take this call. Right? It hears that tone, it connects that inbound caller to you. You begin speaking. Now, not everyone is sending calls to an actual cell phone or landline. They might actually be sending calls to an automated answering service, let's say for your after hours especially. In that case, your automated answering service can't press 1 to accept the phone call. So what you would do is under this advanced options here, put a check mark here in front of allow use of cell phone's voicemail. So now when we offer a call to this phone number, we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call. Right? There's no need to press 1 to accept the call because we already heard the pickup tone. We're saying, okay, we're connecting the call. So great for your automated answering services. Right? However, if this is actually going to your cell phone and you have this option checked, if your cell phone voicemail picks up, right, still a connection tone, you let the call go through, that means that inbound caller gets to your cell phone's voicemail box. Some people want that, some people don't. And then the other thing that comes up is this one here, keep original caller ID. So let's say customer Mary calls in, call gets routed to your cell phone, you pick it up because it's ringing, and you look at it and you don't recognize the phone number. And you're like, I'm tired about hearing extending my auto warranty. So you let the call go to voicemail. Right, so then maybe later you're able to, connect with customer Mary, maybe not. So what you can do is uncheck this one here. So now when the call comes to your cell phone, you're not going to see customer Mary's phone number. You're going to see your main company number. Let's go back to the dashboard just to re-emphasize this point. So that phone number that shows up is this one up here under your main company caller ID. So this 408 phone number would show up. So now you know, oh, this is a work call. It might be worth it for you to take, assuming you're not in the middle of something else. All right, soft phone on the devices page, when you add a soft phone first. So the soft phone and web phone, you always get this warning message. It's basically saying, hey, there's a such thing as VoIP wireless technology, meaning for E91 purposes, you might not be at the location that the E91 is set up for. E911 is set up for your VoIP phone. Right, so on the devices pages, when you click on soft phone, you are creating a third-party soft phone. That's your only option. Right, so that's if you're using an application from Counterpath, or your physical VoIP phone didn't show up on the VoIP phone list, but it is a SIP phone. So you're like, well, let me try programming it with these credentials. Right, we just copy and paste the SIP username, SIP password, and the realm into that device. And then you'll click on Create Device and add it to a user. You can add a web phone also here. I don't recommend it just because the web phone won't work until it's assigned to a user. Because in terms of when you go to webphone.virtualpbx.net and asks you to log in, it uses your same dash login credentials. So until you assign it to a user, it doesn't know what credentials to be expecting. All right, the greetings tab. This will show all your greetings on the account. So I have 54 on this particular account. The source, right? Upload means you uploaded a file. TTS, that's text to speech. And then we got recording means you recorded over the phone. Right, you can download these files so you can listen to them and see if they're still relevant. And then you can click on the little wrench icon here. So this is where you change the file name, right, to something you can recognize. Or you can say, oh, I don't need this anymore, and delete the file completely. You can also add or upload files here. Right, you just give it a name, find the file on your computer, click on Save Changes, and it will upload the file. .ogg, .wave, .mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Groups. This is basically departments, or sometimes referred to as ring groups or hunt groups. You create a group by clicking Add a Group at the top here. You give it a name and an extension number, and you click and drag the people that you want to be in the group. And then you click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on the name. You can always change the name if you want to. And then here you've got the group call attempts, right? This is how many times the system will offer the inbound call to your staff members. In this case, I'm saying 2. Over here to the right, you've got these 2 little up and down icons, right? So you can increase or decrease the number of ring-throughs. And then you also have the option here to delete a group if you're so inclined. Next, if you click on the members box, you will see all your staff members that you have assigned to this group. And along the top here, you have time, right? Measured in seconds, so 0 seconds, 20 seconds, etc. This last one you can edit, so you can make it, the default is 120. This one was expanded to 240 seconds, right? So 4 minutes. Now, no matter what, when calls come in, they're going to ring in this order. I can click distribute so I can even out the call times, right? But still in the same order. I could also do something like this. Right? These are sliders, so you can adjust the ring times. And I'm setting up what's called blast ringing or ring all. Oops. Right, so now when a call comes in, it rings everybody at the same time until one of them picks up. If I want to change the actual order, right, I can click and drag a person's name, drag them around like that. Then I can click distribute. Right, so now I've redone the order. Right, just moving someone around does not change the order. Right, I would have to click distribute, and now the order is changed. A couple things to keep in mind about calls coming into a ring group. Right, for your users, it's going to ring every device on that user. Right, so if you have 4 different devices on a particular user, all of them will ring. Right, so let's say Aaron here, right, call comes into him. He's got a cell phone, a web phone, a soft phone, and a physical VoIP phone, all on his user. Call comes into him on this group, all 4 of them ring until he picks up the call, or until someone else picks up the call. That also means that for calls that come in from the group that go to a user, right, the system is not going to follow the follow me feature on the users, which we'll be getting to later. Right, it's always going to ring all the active devices on a user. All right. Next up, we've got the extension. Oh, again, if you make any changes, click on Save Changes. All right, so groups can have multiple extensions. You can change the extension number, and this is typically, again, for your staff members to transfer calls to the right group. Groups can have their own phone number. Right, you can add from spare, buy new. One thing to keep in mind about groups having their own phone number is that this phone number will not pay attention to your hours of operation, right? Meaning that this phone number is available 24/7. And then we have group features. Helps if I actually click on the box. All right, bring back. So if you enable this, what this is instead of the inbound caller hearing ringing, you can change it and upload your own file. Right, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono. Now, because this replaces the ringing sound, what that means is the system actually has to detect that when we're sending calls to a user, that it's ringing. Right? If for some reason, let's say you have it, set in sequence, and we're sending calls out to your first user, for whatever reasons, their phone is not ringing. We're not getting that ring sound. The ringback file does not play because we haven't gotten that ring sound. Right? We're, again, replacing that ring sound. Right. Next action, if you enable this, basically what you're doing is if no one answers a call, what do you want to do with it? Right? This is a pull down. You can send it back to your virtual receptionist. You can send it to one of your other attendants. You can send it to a call queue. You can send it to a specific device. You can send it to another ring group. You can send it to a specific user, or you can send it to a voicemail box. And then you click Save Changes. Oops. Right. Allow call forward. If you enable this, you're allowing your users to make use of call forwarding on their devices. Right, so like I'm not going to be at my VoIP phone, I can make use of call forwarding, just have calls go to my cell phone. And then lastly, we have caller ID prepend. This is a VoIP feature. I can add text or numbers in front of the caller ID information that shows up on my users' VoIP phones. Right, give them a heads up about what the call is about, which is useful for people who are in multiple groups or queues. Next up, we have numbers. Right, this shows your numbers on the account and where they're going. right? You got the little gear icon here, so you can set the caller ID and etc. And the E911. Spare numbers, again, you can see the numbers on your account that you're not using. If you don't want to, if you want to remove them from account, you just click on the little box in front of them, and now you have the option to delete. You confirm the deletion, and now it's gone. You can buy numbers here, right? Local and toll-free, just like as I showed under main number, or just like in groups or users when we get there. Just instead, it's just going to go here under your spare number list, meaning you'd have to assign them later to wherever you want them to go. Port is moving a phone number from another carrier to VirtualPBX, or to any other carrier technically. Right? So say you're moving a number from AT&T to us, you click on New Port Request, you give it a name, you choose US local or toll-free, you click Next. Now the system wants you to upload a copy of your bill. It will then ask you to enter in the billing address, and then it asks for the account number, the billing telephone number, then it asks you what number you're going to port, and you input each one of those. Then it gives you the ability to download a blank letter of agency, or LOA, and then you can upload it, a completed and signed LOA. There's 4 check boxes you need to check, and then you submit the documents. You should get an email right away after you finish submitting, saying yes, you've submitted the documents. By the next business day, you should get a second email. This comes directly from our porting team, letting you know, yes, we did get the documents. Here's what to expect about the porting process. Some notes to keep in mind about the porting process. For the completed and signed LOA, right, it asks for like your company name and your address. That should match what the current carrier, so AT&T in this case, has on file for that phone number that you're porting. Right? It does need to be signed. Right? Simply typing your name twice will get it rejected. If you have numbers from several different carriers, right? Let's say you're trying to consolidate everything to one account. For each carrier, you need to have a separate LOA, basically a separate port request. Now, for porting, toll-free numbers typically takes about 3 to 5 business days, assuming everything is correct. A local phone number, that can take anywhere, well, the fastest I've seen it is 1 business day. But normally it takes about 2 to 3 weeks is the average. If we get a rejection, it's a fairly generic rejection, like address mismatch or unauthorized user mismatch. Right? Sometimes some carriers are nice and they tell us, oh, the street number's wrong. But anything like that, we do pass on to you. But then you would have to confirm with the current carrier what the correct information should be. All right, users. All right, so users shows all your users on the account. The little blue suit icon means a person is an admin, right? So they can do all the changes we're talking about today. And the gray person is a standard user, meaning they can't make these changes. Up here at the top, you click Add User. You enter the form, right? So first and last name, pretty self-explanatory. The email address used for login needs to be unique for each user, right? So you can't reuse, say, support@virtualpbx.com for all your users. Each one of them has to have a different email address. Password, you create a password for them, or your browser may be able to suggest passwords. And then main extension number, right? Excuse me. The system is suggesting extension 1021 because that's the next available one in the series. You can change this, right? Let's say you added a new business. You're like, okay, people on this new business, you start with extension 5000 or 5310, whatever you want to do. All right. Create a voicemail box for the user. This is checked by default, and what this means is it activates the voicemail feature for the user right away. This voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So for instance, if I created a user and then I added a VoIP phone to them right away, they can pick up their VoIP phone and use the feature code *98. That logs them into this voicemail box I also just created for them. The first time they do that, the system will prompt them to create a PIN number for that voicemail box, and then will prompt them to record their voicemail greeting. Right. Include in the company directory, right? That's that smart PBX directory. You can change your mind later. Send emails to an alternate address. So, by default, when a user is created, the email address used for login is also used for sending out voicemails. Right, that voicemail notification email, also for password reset. If you don't want to use that email address for those purposes, right, you want those things to go to somewhere else, you put a check mark here, and then you put a different email address. So that way those voicemail notifications go to this alternate address instead of the email address used for login. And then the last one here, send credentials to the user. I recommend checking this, so that way when you click on create user, they get an email saying, hey, welcome to your Dash account. Here's your email, your username, your password, and how to log in. If you're only creating one person, you click on create user. If you need to add multiple, create user and add another. Once a user is created, you can click on their name. Oops, helps not to overclick. You can change their name. You can, if you click on change credentials, you can change the email address and password. Right. You can also click here, right, to resend that person the password reset email. Now you can edit this for other people, right? For yourself, you need to click up your name at the top. Voicemail box PIN, you can enter in a temporary PIN number for them. Here's your option to send to an alternate address, as well as to be in the user directory or not. Over here, this pull down is to select if a person is going to be a user or an admin. Then we've got the time zone. Typically, it's just easier to search for a major city. This is the display language for the Dash pages for this user, right? So if someone is more comfortable having the pages in Russian, they can do so. It's English, French, German, and Russian are the options currently. All right, ringing timeout. This is how much time by default the system will ring a user's devices. Right? We don't control how many times your VoIP phone is going to ring. What we control is how much time we're trying to connect to that device. Default is 20 seconds, which is plenty of time to a VoIP phone or a landline, not so much for a cell phone. So if you have someone who's primarily using cell phones, you're going to want to increase this to at least 45, if not 60 seconds. Right? In terms of how PBX systems work, right? Calls come into the PBX system, gets routed to a user, then gets routed to those users' devices. So for a landline, for example, right, we send it to the landline telecom, they go, oh, it's right here, boom, send the call right straight through. Whereas when a call is get offered to a cell phone provider, right, call goes to the cell phone provider and say, hold up, we need to find them first. Pings the cell phone towers, they find you, then they send the call through. It's that delay is why on a PBX system, you would need to increase the ring duration for calls going to a cell phone. Right. Users can have extensions. Actually, they pretty much should have an extension. They can also have multiple. You can also change extension numbers by assigning one and then removing one. Right. Users can have their own phone numbers. You can either add from spare, buy new, or unassign if you don't want them to use it. Now, like groups, a phone number on a user is available 24 hours a day. So if Aaron had his cell phone here as a device, his cell phone could ring at 2 in the morning. Speaking of devices, You can add from spare, right? So any device that's not currently in use. You can add new devices, right? So you have the same options as we had before: the SIP phone, cell phone, soft phone. And if we go to soft phone here, actually this won't work. Yeah, let's go to a different user real quick then. All right, so by default, it starts you off as a third-party soft phone, just like we did under devices. But you notice it had a little secondary update here where it added this line at the bottom. It says use third-party application. It's grayed out. If you click on it, it will flip it to say use VirtualPBX application, meaning you're going to use the VirtualPBX soft phone. You give it a name. You click on create device. And then you click on save changes. Once you click on save changes, this Jade faxing test user is going to get an email saying, hey, your new soft phone is ready. Here's the username. Here's the password. Links to download the application so they can download it to their iPhone or their Galaxy phone or to a Windows or Mac PC. They can use those credentials to log in to the application, make and receive calls. Now, each email address can only have one soft phone, right? Which is why when I clicked up here under Aaron, it didn't give me that option to switch the third-party application because Aaron already has a soft phone associated with his email address. Likewise, as I mentioned earlier, actually, right? It's easier to just add a web phone directly to a user on the user pages here. Just give it a name. You click on create device and save changes, and then Aaron here would have a web phone. The next time he logs in, typically, under this little help icon here, he'll have a web phone link show up. But he could also just go to webphone.virtualpbx.net, use his dash login, and make and receive calls via Chrome or Firefox. All right, user features. So caller ID number, it's only available for users with their own phone number. When you click it on, what you're doing is saying, hey, when this user makes an outbound call from the VoIP phones, use this phone number as their outbound caller ID versus the main company phone number, right, that we set up on the dashboard. Call forwarding. You have off, on, or failover mode. So off, pretty self-explanatory. On, now this is something you can set up for your users, but your users can also set up themselves via the user portal or using feature codes from their VoIP phone. But what you do is you select either a desk phone or a mobile. You put +1 area code and phone number, and then you click Save Changes. And that's basically saying, hey, instead of going to their normal phones, send it to this other device instead. Right? So this forwarding device shouldn't already be a device on the user, right? This is something they only use sporadically. Like someone has a cabin in the woods and they have a landline there, and for some reason they still want to take business calls when they're in their nice cabin. Now, failover mode is for your VoIP phone users, right? Well, so the system can detect when a VoIP phone is no longer connected, right? It becomes unregistered. And in that scenario, if you have failover mode enabled, what happens is the system detects your VoIP phone isn't working. Call comes to your user, it automatically forwards to your forwarding device. Hot desking is another VoIP feature. You click enable, you click create a hot desk ID. Usually, if you're making use of 4-digit extensions, I just say use their extension number, because they'll have that memorized pretty quickly. Up to you if you want to have them use a PIN number. And what this is for, actually, in our pandemic world, you have many offices now going to a hybrid kind of schedule where people are only in maybe twice a week. In that scenario, some companies will probably start reducing their infrastructure, right? The number of desks they have, computers and VoIP phones. That's where hot desking would come into play. So I come into desk to work on Tuesday. I sit down at desk number 7. I pick up the VoIP phone. I hit *11 on the phone. That turns on hot desking for that phone. It asks me for my hot desk ID. If my admin said you had to have a PIN number, then it would ask me for the PIN number. And then it would say, calls will now be sent to this device. So for the rest of my work day, while I'm at desk number 7, calls to my user will ring at that phone that I'm sitting at. End of my day, I pick up the handset, I hit *12 to turn off hot desking. The next time I come into the office, say Friday, someone is already sitting at desk number 7. So I'm like, all right, that's cool. I'm gonna head over. I'm gonna sit over here at desk number 35. Same process. Right? Pick up the phone, *11, hot desk ID, PIN number if required, and now calls are coming to me at this other desk I'm sitting at. Voicemail box. When you click on this, again, this was enabled because I created the voicemail box at the same time as the user. Transcribe. This is a plan-specific feature. It's not on all plans. Basically, it's the system listens to the voicemail and puts it in text form in the email notification. But beyond that, this is fairly standard, right? Voicemail to email, if you have this enabled, that means whenever you get a voicemail, you're getting an email notification. And that's why this is also attached, is because you're saying, hey, attach that voicemail as an MP3 file to that email so the person can just double click and listen to it. Now, voicemail boxes are limited to 100 messages, right? So once they get to 100, someone tries to leave a message, they get that voicemail box's full error message until someone clears it out. If you don't want to deal with that as an admin, just say, hey, delete messages from the server after the notification gets sent out, right? Because most people's computers can hold more, have quite a bit of storage, and your savvy users would create a folder for their voicemails that they want to keep. Fax box. Users can have their own individual fax boxes if you want them to. You would just click enable. And then you can either select a spare number or buy a new number. Now, when you buy a new number here, you can only buy one number. Or you can assign a new extension. I recommend making use of a phone number. That way it allows this user to both receive and send faxes. Right? Gives them more versatility. If you choose to only use an extension number, that means this user can only receive inbound faxes. Anytime they try to send an outbound fax out, they're going to get an error message, because the system is going to use their extension number, their fax box extension number, as the caller ID, which is not valid caller ID, so it will fail. Versus if you have an assigned phone number to it, the system will use the fax box number as the outbound caller ID, which is valid, so then the fax will go through. Conference bridge. If you enable conferencing on a user, the only thing you need to do is create a PIN number for them. And then you click on Save Changes. And that PIN number, your users can change via the user portal. Follow Me is a feature for users with multiple devices. So that way you can set up how their devices ring. All right, so when you first set it up, or first enable it, it looks like this. Basically saying, hey, which devices do you want to use, and how long do you want them to ring? Right, and then it will actually, when you first enable, right, when you first enable it, actually, after you uncheck, it looks like this. So this is exactly like ring groups, right? You've got the timestamps across the top. The default is 120 seconds. You can click distribute. You can click and drag and change the order. And then you click on Save Changes. Music on hold. Users can have their own hold music if you want them to. You would just need to enable it and then upload a .ogg.wave.mp3 file recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Hit the up arrow icon and then click on Save Changes. Customize call recording. You have call recording available on your staff members. When you first enable it, it looks like this. And the system is asking you what kind of calls do you want to record. Right? Inbound internal, right? Coworker Bob called. Right? Inbound external, customer Mary called. Outbound external, called coworker Bob. Right? Outbound external means called customer Mary. You don't have to have all four. You can choose only one or two, etc. Now, every account has a built-in amount of storage associated with it. It's going to vary depending on your account. And then if you go over that storage amount, then there's an overage based on per gigabyte, I believe. Please double check with our account services team. They can verify how much storage you have and what the excess fees would be. All right. Voicemail boxes. So here you see all the voicemail boxes on the account. You know, some have a name in this column because that's the user voicemail box, right? So it was created at the same time the user was. The ones that don't were ones I created manually, which you do up here at the top by clicking Add Voicemail Box. You give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number, and then you click on Create Voicemail Box. And the reason you would create a voicemail box would be for like your ring groups or for your ACD queues instead of using a user's specific voicemail box. All right, you can click on the wrench icon next to any voicemail box so you can look at its name, its voicemail box number, and PIN number. Right, this is what you would use to record a greeting for it over the phone. Right? You would call into a main number that rings to a virtual receptionist or auto attendant. You would press *97 on your phone, which will then prompt the system will ask you to enter the voicemail box number and then the PIN number. So then you can listen to the voicemail boxes, and then you can also get to, or the voicemail greetings, messages, but as well as get to the personal options to record a new greeting. Under Advanced, you also have greeting media, so you can just simply upload a file. So the media file, this is the standard greeting that plays most of the time. Right? The temporary file, this is for your vacation out of office, right? So this is one you only use occasionally. So if you have something selected under the temporary file, it will supersede whatever is selected in the media file, right? Until you turn the temporary file back to none. Recipients, your user voicemail boxes already have a built-in recipient, right? The email address used for login, so they already have that. For any voicemail box you create, you probably do want to add an email address here, right? Click Add Recipients, and then enter the email address. If you only need to add one, then you just click Save Changes. If you need to add multiple, you would just click Add, and then you'd have a new box. And then options. So once a standalone voicemail box has a greeting in place and recipients, you can go ahead and click on Already Set Up. Typically at that point, it's do you want to attach the voicemail, right, the voicemails to email, and do you want to delete after notification because of that 100 message limit? And then you would click on Save Changes. All right, next up we have Advanced Routing. This is home to Direct Inward System Access, or DISA for short. And this allows you, or allows a cell phone or landline user to call into the system to log in over the phone and then make an outbound call. And when they make that outbound call, instead of their cell phone number showing up as a caller ID, be your main company number. So you would click up here, you would click Enable. Now, by default, the system creates a PIN number. If you click Edit Settings, you can change that PIN number. You can also add an extension to it. Now, if I don't add an extension, then the only way to access DISA is if you make it a menu option under your virtual receptionist or one of your auto attendants, right? It's not something you have to announce in your main greeting. It'd be just something that your staff members know, oh, call in, press 9. Then they enter in the PIN number, and then they can make the outbound call. Otherwise, you can just create an extension number, so that way you don't have to have a menu option. Like, let's say you already have all the menu options used. Then you say, okay, let's just use an extension number. So now, call comes in to a main number that goes to the virtual receptionist or one of my auto attendants. I enter this extension number. The system will prompt me to enter this PIN number. I'll hear dial tone again, so then I just enter area code and phone number that I'm trying to call and make my outbound call. And again, it's not my cell phone number that shows up, it's going to be my main company number. Now, for new accounts, this feature is not enabled by default. And that is because if someone is able to figure out your PIN number for it, they'll be able to make outbound calls on your account and you won't know about it right away. Probably until you get your next bill. If it's something you do want enabled, you just need to email our account services or support teams and they can get that enabled on your account. Next up, we have the call logs. So this shows you your call history on the account. We go to this month, we'll get more information here. So the green arrow to the right means that's a call that came into the system, whereas the yellow arrow to the left means that's an outbound call. And you scroll down here, I'm going to look for one that's a little bit longer. All right, and then here you see call came in and offered to these devices. Normal clearing means the call ended normally, right? So the call connected, the people spoke. All right, here again, this call, you don't see it being offered anywhere, but it most likely got to a voicemail message. Little fire hydrant icon here lets you report a call. Basically, it creates an email for you to go into support@virtualpbx.com. It has the technical information. You do want to type in the body of that email saying, this is what happened, right? Like, we had bad call audio, or my phone didn't actually ring, what have you. You can download these files. It just downloads that as a CSV file, so you can use a spreadsheet program to sort the information. You also have this custom, so you can do your own custom date range. The call log, you can get information going back 1 year, right? Assuming your account has been open for a year. Longer than that, I believe our engineers can go back up to 18 months total. Beyond that, we're not able to recover the data. So if you suspect you're going to need your call log information long term, I would suggest every month, right, at the end of the month, just come in and actually probably the beginning of the next month, right? So September 1st, I would come in here, I would go to custom, and I would set the range for August 1st to August 31st, download that file, and then I can save it, right, as August 2021 call log, and then I have an easy way of sorting my call logs. All right, next up is feature codes. I've already talked about a couple of these. This information is all available on our website, right, under the support pages. There's 2 documents. One, there's feature codes, but there's also the phone commands cheat sheet. It's a 1-page PDF. It has the feature codes and a very brief description of what they do. So pretty useful for your staff members to have handy. All right, so we've all been under dashboard, right? So that's an included feature. So over here, we've got ACD queues. ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution. It is a call center feature. It is an add-on feature available on some plans, right? So if you're on, I believe it's like the basic or essentials, right? Some of our base level plans, you don't have the option to even add ACD queues. So you would first have to upgrade your plan, right? So probably increased cost, and then you have the increased cost of the queues. What we're showing here are the standard ACD queues. I don't recall the current pricing on them. I do apologize. There's also ACD queues Pro, which start at $99 per month per queue. Right, standard queues are less than that. So here you would click on Add New Queue. So you give it a name, and then you select if a queue has its own phone number or an extension. It can have one or the other. All right, and then we go to the queue configuration section. So here you have the routing strategy. On standard queues, you have round robin, which equalizes out over time. Ring all, right, rings everybody at once. Most idle, so whoever's been waiting for the call the longest gets the next call. Least calls, meaning who has the least amount of connected calls, right? So who's spoken to the least amount of people, I guess the next call that comes in. And then least offers, which is the combination of connected and missed calls. Right, so for those last two, let's say we have Bob and Mary in the queue. Bob has spoken to 2 people. Mary has spoken to 5. Under least calls, the next call that comes in goes to Bob. Now, let's say Bob has 20 offered calls. Yet he only spoke to 2. Mary's only had 5 offered calls, but she spoke to all 5. Under least offers, next call comes in, goes to Mary. Now, let's say Bob and Mary have been working for a couple hours, and then Dylan logs in. Under both of those scenarios, right, next call that comes in goes to Dylan until he matches one of the others. Obviously, if Dylan gets on a call and a second call comes in, then it sorts between Bob and Mary. Hold treatment, you can upload your own music file, right? .wave, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono, 1 megabyte, so that's 5 minutes. The Pro queues, you have more hold options in terms of you can like announce their position in line, announce their expected wait time. You can have multiple media files play. Pro queues do not have ring all, by the way. It has the other routing options, but just not ring all. Queue timeout measured in seconds. This is how much time the inbound caller can wait on hold. The queue call limit, if you put something here, say 6, that means up to 6 people can wait on hold on top of whoever is already speaking to your staff members. All right, timeout immediately if empty, if you enable this. That means if you have no staff members logged in and a call comes in, the system will treat that inbound caller as if they've already hit this 3,600 second timeout. All right, escalation queue. Basically, you can send calls to a second queue if all your staff members are busy. And then escalation call flow after timeout. So after this 3,600 seconds, where do you want to send them? None means the call just ends. Right? I can send it to one of my other attendants. I can send it to a specific device. I can send it to the user directory. I can send it to one of my ring groups. I can send it to a media file. Again, once that media file stops playing, it's done, or the call ends. Or I can send it to a user or a user voicemail box, or any voicemail box. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you make use of escalation queues, the system keeps tracks of the timeout based off of the first queue the call entered, right? So enters this queue for 3,600 seconds. Now, if before that 3,600 seconds, the system sends it to an escalation queue, the system's still tracking that original timer. It doesn't reset it because it went to a second queue or a third queue, right? So once this timer ends, it sends it back to the first queue's escalation call flow timeout. All right, agent settings, agent recovery time. Basically, after they're done with a call, how much time does the system wait before it offers them a second call from this queue? Anywhere from 0 to 30 seconds is fairly typical. Force away on reject or missed. If you enable this, this means if a user or when your staff member misses a call, the system puts them in away mode. Right, and then an agent connects timeout measured in seconds. Default is 20. So in queues, your staff members currently can only accept calls with a VoIP phone, right? So soft phone, web phone, or SIP phone. No cell phones, no landlines currently. So 20 seconds, typically plenty of time. and then you would click on Create Queue. So once you've created a queue or multiple queues, over here on the left, you want to click on Members. Now, these call center members, these are the people that are available to be in my queues. They don't have to be. I'm just saying they can be. All right, if you click on Manage Members, the group on the left, these are available users in the system, meaning they're not assigned to queues, but they can be if I want them to be. All right, so I can click on their name and then click Add as a member. And now J can be assigned to a specific queue and log into the ACD queues section. Right. Likewise, I can scroll down here and let's say I can remove these people from the queue list. So now they're no longer part of queues, right? That's no longer part of their job responsibilities. And the list gets updated. So once you've assigned members to be part of the queue group overall, if you go back up here to queues, and if you click on a queue name, click on Add Agents. So now I can click and drag people and add them as a member of this queue, right? So that's part of their job responsibilities. And then once you've added agents, you can click on Add Managers and move people to the right that you want to be a manager. So I can move Cat over here and then click on Save Changes. So for my staff members, right, they can log into dash.virtualpbx.com. They would click up here or mouse over here and click on ACD queues to take them to this page. They would click on Begin Session up here at the top right. And now I am logged into my queues. However, notice at the top it says away. Oops, it says away. I'm also red, right? So that's a visual cue so you know, okay, they're not ready to take calls. The first time they log in especially, they want to click on this little phone icon here and select their VoIP device that they're going to take calls on. If they don't do this, they may not be offered calls properly. So that's why you want to select whatever VoIP phone you're going to use. And then they should mark themselves as ready. You'll see they'll turn green. So now I'm ready to take calls. If a person's bar here is blue, that means they're on an inbound call that came into the queue. If they're yellow, that means they're on an outbound call or a call outside of the queues. And if they're gold, they're on recovery time. Right, so like when I go to lunch, I would mark myself away. And at the end of my day, I would click on End Session. Now, under the Pro Queues, you would have another section here in between here called Performance, where you can compare multiple agents to each other, right, in terms of like calls taken, etc. You also under Pro Queues have the ability for your admins and managers to eavesdrop in on an active call. They can whisper to the agent on an active call, as well as barge in and take over a call. All right, blacklists. This is an included feature in Dash. It allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are not allowing to connect to your system. You can make multiple lists if you want, or you can just one big list. You can click on Edit Blacklists over here on the right. The first time you would just click Add to create a new list. Once a list is created, you can always click on it. You can give it a name. And then first up, block anonymous. Are you going to block inbound calls that don't give valid caller ID? Right, if you turn that on, that means you are blocking them. Right? If I turn it off, that means even though I'm not getting valid caller ID, I'm still letting the call through to my system. Beyond that, you would click on Add Number. You put +1 area code and phone number, and keep clicking Add for each number that you want to add. When you're done, you click on Save. You go back to Settings, and then you make sure that your list is over here on the right under Selected. So these 3 lists are active, whereas this one is not. All right, so once you move a list over, you would click Update, and so now your lists are active and in effect. Right. Next, we have got Dynamic Caller ID. This is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phone users. So first option here is like we have down here at the bottom. I'm saying, hey, I want outbound caller ID to show to this phone number. This phone number has to be a number on your account. Right? So either it's a main number, a number on a user, etc., whatever, just a number on your account. And then I'm saying use a feature code. So I say, hey, so for my VoIP phone users, pick up their VoIP phone, hit *71, then dial the number they're reaching out to. And just by hitting that *71, their outbound caller ID automatically changes to this 918 number. They don't have to do anything else. The alternative is over here, where I'm saying, hey, whenever someone dials a 408 phone number from their VoIP phone, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to this 408 number. All right, so it looks like a local call to the person I'm calling. Faxes, this goes to the fax manager. This is included. And you can get to any fax box on your account. And you can see their inbound fax activity. All right, so you see this user got a fax on the 16th at just afternoon. Came from a 305 area code phone number. It was targeted to the 650 number. There's a page. I can download this file. As an admin, if I click on it here, I can remove the file or select if there's lots of faxes on a particular page. Outbound fax, again, I can check a user's outbound fax activity. You can see that they sent out 3 this past month. And this refreshes basically every month. I can see the number that it came from, the number that they were going to, the number of pages. I can download the file. The email to fax logs will show you all the errors that the system had in terms of grabbing that email. Right? There'll be a little eyeball icon here under details, which will give you some further information about what happened. Most commonly, it's a user used their personal email address versus the work email address, or usually a problem with the attachment. In some cases, people forgot the attachment, or they added multiple attachments, or they used something other than PDF or TIFF. Monitor, this is a plan-specific feature and allows you to see the status of your staff members. You can either go by the users or by their devices. Right, you can see all of them, who's available or who's busy. You can see your active inbound calls. You can also see anyone who's been parked and the parking spot number. All right, number manager, that's included. This basically takes you back to your spare numbers. Recording manager, this probably won't load. This takes you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. So you can see your call recordings. You can download them, you can listen to them, you can delete them, so that way you don't go over your storage amount. That's included. Reports will take you to reports.virtualpbx.com. This is a plan-specific feature. It's actually advanced reporting. You can create your own reports to get a better idea of what's going on with your call activity. I mentioned this at the top, but we do have a reports demo on our YouTube channel. Just go under videos, and you should be able to find it there. Voicemails, this takes you to the voicemail manager. It's included in all plans. And you can go to any voicemail box on the account and see their voice messages. If there are messages, you can click on the box in front of it As an admin, you can move a voicemail message from one user to another if you need to, right? Which means you can also have the option to play it back. User portal. Every user has their own user portal. As an admin, you cannot access anyone else's user portal, but you've already been able to get to everything, right? So users can get to their own voicemails. Now, if you have delete after notification enabled, they're not going to see anything here, right? If you don't have that enabled, then they can use the UI here to listen to their voicemails, etc. And that would apply to the voicemail manager that we were looking at earlier. Your users can view their call history, and they can select the time range. They can see their own fax history, and adjust the date range if necessary. The contact list is just within the Dash account, right? So all the other users, the group, etc. It's not something your users can add to. The conference tab, over here on the right, this is where your users would adjust their PIN numbers. Here and here. Right, and then they have the option, are people joining muted, are people joining deafened, and are you playing entry and exit tones? Over here, this is where you invite other Dash users to your conference. This is where you lock a conference. You can mute everybody, you can unmute everybody, you can end the conference. When you're in a conference, you can also mute specific participants as well as kick specific participants. And then settings and devices. This is where your users can set up their own call forwarding. They can choose the number it goes to, and then they can click save. Webhooks, this is a plan-specific feature. Basically, it allows you to create, essentially code, to link Dash to other software. If you're interested in this, our sales team actually has the details on this. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see examples of what we have done to link Dash to other software, like Slack, for example. But basically, it's essentially programming to some degree. So something to keep in mind. And that is everything. I'll go back to the dashboard here. I ran a little longer than I intended, mostly because I stumbled over myself. I don't see any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream for today. Again, we'll be back next Tuesday. Feel free to go through any of the previous recordings if you need to. I should be all pretty much the same details. And again, on our channel, we do have the advanced reporting demo and the ACDQ's Pro demo to get you more details on those. Anyway, I thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful week.